So thanks for letting me present today. My name is Mike Voor. I'm in the middle there. Um, and I'm talking about a device. So I'm not talking about a drug or a therapeutic today. So it's a little unique. And as a matter of fact, I have it with me. I'm going to try to do a demo, and that's always fraught with peril. So hopefully it goes well. But so the Vertify probe, as you might have guessed, the name is not a typo. It's a mashup between the words vertebrae and verify. And so the function of the probe is for the spine surgeon to actually verify how strong the bone is in the spine before he or she puts in a pedicle screw. And I like to tell people a little bit about the device before I go into all the background and everything, so you can sort of be thinking about what I'm going to be talking about. So first of all, it's not a permanent implant. It's just a tool that is used in the normal flow of a surgical case. It has a straightforward, non-clinical trial required FDA clearance pathway, which is good. And most importantly, it specifically tests the bone quality at the site where the pedicle screws are going to interact with the bone. And I'm going to talk about some of the other methods for assessing bone quality later, and hopefully try to convince you why this technology will be better. So lumbar fusion is the most common type of spine surgery that's performed, and these surgeries overwhelmingly use pedicle screws and rods for instrumentation to aid in the fusion process. And there's always at least a minimum of 4 rods, and sometimes many more than that. I mean, 4 screws, 2 rods. So as devices go, it's a very large market. There's $724 million worth of pedicle screws and rods used in the United States every year in the roughly 350,000 spinal fusion surgeries that are done. Notably, 17% of these surgeries need to be revised because of loosening of the screws. And this is a bone problem. It's not a screw problem. Screws are very well designed, but the bone quality is the issue. And doing some quick math, if just 15% of these revision cases are avoided, that can save up to $450 million a year in the United States. So when we look at the demographic shifts in spine surgery, the patient population is clearly getting older. And that's important because in osteoporotic patients, which represent probably the top half of the age range, where their average age right now is 56 years, 50% of those cases result in some sort of a screw loosening in a spinal procedure. The surgeons are still doing these cases because this pedicle screw instrumentation is so good at assuring that there is a successful fusion surgery. So I'll leave this here for a second. So you may be asking, what do we do now? What happened? What do the surgeons do currently? Well, first of all, they have to have some sort of sense of whether the bone is high quality or not. And there's really only a couple things they can do. Maybe they're lucky enough to have had a CT scan before surgery, but all patients don't get a CT scan. They're expensive. They expose the patient to a lot of radiation. What they can also do, if they're worried about the bone quality, is get a DEXA scan. And that's just a bone density scan. But you can see here, this is L1, 2, 3, and 4. And a DEXA scan just basically averages how much bone mineral is in that entire space. So it is not specific to the bone that's actually going to have the job of keeping the screw stable when the screw is placed in the spine. And the reason that it's important to be more specific using a technology like ours is that you don't want to have to do something extra in the surgery if it's not necessary, right? So right now, I'm going to actually run back real quick. Right, that picture right there shows you a technology in a screw where it's a screw that you can put cement in with the screw, and the cement actually helps keep the screw from loosening. So that might be an option for a surgeon who runs into a spine with poor bone quality, they would use this technology. These are a lot more expensive, and there's a risk to the patient of injecting cement into their vertebral body. So it's, again, it's something you don't want to do unless you know you have to. The other thing you could do is put more screws in. You know, everybody has hung a heavy picture on the wall, right? And you put a screw in the wall and you're like, is that screw going to rip through the drywall or not? Well, you might put extra screws, right? So that's the other thing, is you go to a picture like this where you have multiple levels, but that's more invasive. It's more dangerous for the patient. Again, you want to avoid it. You only want to do it if you know you absolutely have to. So where are we now? This is a technology that is still within the university. We've been very fortunate to have 3 rounds of funding through a program in the state of Kentucky called Kinetic. And it's about $50,000 per round. And we're on our third round. And it's backed by the NIH. So again, we're still in the university. We're probably going to look first for just a simple out licensing deal, but there's a lot of ways that I'll talk about that we can actually build value by getting more data. And so I'll explain what our killer experiment is. And the good news is we can get a lot of information just using cadaver tests and not having to go actually into patients. And again, this is either a class 1, class 2 device, so it's not going to need clinical trials. So you've been hearing about all these drug studies in 10 years. This is something that could be on the market in just a couple of years. And so what we do is we surgically implant screws in cadaver vertebrae, and we have a validated testing methodology that actually cycles the screws as if a patient is walking postoperatively for up to 6 months. And we can measure how much force it takes for the screws to actually become loose. So what we're planning to do is use our probe to assess the bone before we put the screws in. We will have had DEXA scans, which is right now the gold standard, and we'll just compare directly between the DEXA scans and our probe data. And our probe actually collects continuous bone strength data on a spectrum from 0 to whatever. Of course, we've modified it, and I'm going to show it to you for, these are just simple neurosurgeons that are using this device. So we just have red, green, and blue, just to tell them, red, green, and yellow, I'm sorry, to tell them it's good, it's bad, or it's a maybe. And so that's what I'm going to try to do now. And I hope this goes well. This is just it's an external battery so that I could put it in my luggage. And of course, the airline lost my luggage, and it just came in last night, so I was sweating about that too. So as you can see, it starts off, it's red. Everybody can see that, I hope. And that's just calibrating it or zeroing it out. And I have a couple of foam blocks here that simulate bone. And so I'll let you guys tell me whether this first. Tell me. Surgeon just simply creates the hole like they're getting ready to put the screw in during surgery, and they would just take the extra step of pushing the device in. And they get a green light, meaning this is good bone, so they can just put their screw in and continue the case. If they run across some bone that's not so good, push the screw in. It's red. So this is not good enough bone. Then they can consider some of those alternatives to the case. Maybe it's so bad and it's in every vertebrae in the spine, because you can test every single screw hole location. And they would just, at that point, maybe abandon the case and say it's not worth the risk of doing a case. I know I'm a little bit over time. I went ahead and did the demo, so I really don't have to show you this slide. But it's a very inexpensive, device. What we're working on now is just skip to here. So right now we're working on the design for manufacture and all of the details about sterilization and packaging, so that we can then go with a comprehensive package to the FDA and start looking at approval. Of course, if the office at the University of Louisville finds a corporate partner that wants to jump in at any time, we're open to doing that. but we know the importance of continuing to add value. And so our next tranche of funding, if we're lucky enough to get the fourth one, will be to do the like I said, the design for manufacture and all of the details for the FDA, along with some first in human trials, just a few cases in patients at the University of Louisville using the IRB approval mechanism. So, sorry, I went a little bit over.
All right, thank you very much. And please come up to him at the network break and ask your questions.
Or and then is it disposable or is it reused after each patient? Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I could hear. I don't know if y'all could, everyone else could hear as well. She's asking if it's disposable or reusable and if it used. So it's clearly designed to be able to be used in every level of the spine during a single case. We are evaluating, and that could be something that a partner, hint, somebody here maybe could help us determine what makes the most sense. Maybe it's just a fully disposable device where it's just in a peel pack. It's sterilized, comes into the OR, you use it, you toss it. Unfortunately, it sounds wasteful, but there's a lot of products like that out there, and it's a simpler way to go. We've looked at the possibility of only replacing the tip, because there will be a useful life with some fatigue failure of the penetrating tip of the probe. Maybe the handle will be reusable, but I'm leaning towards, because obviously this battery would normally be incorporated, and it's just a simple device that would come in a peel pack and probably just be disposable, one-time use, but you would use it in every level. So if you're using 8 screws, you'd use it 8 times in the case, and then